Oh, the weather outside is frightful, but the fire is so delightful, since we've no place to go.
When I think of Jack London, I think of a badass. A racist badass, but a badass. He grew up without a father, then he left everything behind at the age of 15 to become an oyster pirate.
Jack London, born Jack Griffith Channing, was born on January 12, 1876, to a spiritualist and an astrologer. His father, the astrologer, abandoned him before birth. After his stepfather came in the picture, Jack would often spend time with his neighbors, the Prentices, who gave him the name Jack. At the age of 15, Jack went on to have a series of jobs, including oyster pirate, member of the California Fish Patrol, and a job aboard a sealing ship in Japan. When he came home is when his writing career started with Typhoon off the coast of Japan. After that, he joined Coxey's army, then was arrested for vagrancy. His further life after imprisonment was dedicated to the pursuit of knowledge. During this, he joined the Socialist Party, then headed to Alaska for the Klondike Gold Rush. From there, he got inspiration for his story, An Odyssey of the North. After 2 wives, 2 daughters, 18 novels, almost 200 short stories, 3 plays, and countless nonfiction readings, London died in 1916 due to alcoholism.
Mr. London was one hell of a man. When I saw that man write, it was like watching a steam engine roll down tracks at top speed. Man, you would have thought that he had a passion for the heart of the craft, but he said to a good buddy of ours that he only wrote for the cash. Amazing.
London could only be described as the most popular American writer to live by the year of 1916. However popular his work had been, though, only recently has it been examined for its complexity after a long period of disinterest during most of the 20th century. He was also labeled as a great influence for other famous writers such as Richard Wright and Ernest Hemingway.
Jack Boyle was a man out of his time. His writings showed such an insight to the natural world and the state of the human condition. It explored such literary and philosophical issues such as socialism and social Darwinism, showing his conflicting views of society, all that remains relevant in this destructive turmoil of today's culture.
One of London's more famous stories is 1908's version To Build a Fire. In his story, London explores the themes of survival and irony through the journey of a man and his dog. The man, who's similar to Jack, is on his way to meet the boys so they can go gold mining in the Yukon. The man, a self-proclaimed survivalist, struggles to keep warm throughout the journey, falling waist deep into a frozen creek and putting himself at risk of hypothermia and frostbite. With a dog that is naturally built for the frozen tundra and having no dependence on him whatsoever, the man tasks himself with building a fire so he can keep himself warm.
So, with all your survival techniques and stuff, how do you think this man in Jack London's To Build a Fire should have changed his tactics? What makes his experience ironic?
Well, so pretty much at the start of the story, he's saying how he's really cold. But he's just blocking out that fear of being really cold because he's like, oh, if I just don't think about it, then I'm not cold. Which is untrue. If you actually know how a human body works, you're cold even if you think you're not cold.
I see.
In the strict ticking clock of his dwindling life, the man ends up condemning himself with a lack of preparation and a huge desperation to live. One can think that he wouldn't have gotten himself into this situation in the first place if he had overcome his arrogance and packed better for the weather. That, however, was not the case.
So, this man was a survivalist like you, though, right?
Yes.
So it's starting to be a little ironic that he packed kind of lightly, and then he got himself killed.
Yeah, to say the least, it is definitely ironic because he was wearing not enough clothing, definitely not enough food was packed. All he had was a few biscuits. They were just soaked in bacon grease, and that's all he was thinking about? What a freaking idiot. And when he built a fire, he shouldn't have done it under a freaking tree. It's ironic how he died when he was thinking about, like, not being cold, but then he died of being cold.
What follows these themes more is the almost fatal interaction between man and dog. After 2 failed attempts at building a fire, the man finds an opportunity of survival in his pet. He uses his knowledge from a tale of a man who killed a steer to keep himself warm, and decides to do this with his dog. He lets his survival instincts kick in and attempts to kill the dog. His attempt falls short as he finds he can't do it with his overly numb hands and gives up on the idea. The destruction of logic and compassion doesn't stop here. The man continues his hunt for survival with the idea of running to his friends. At this point, the cold has overridden any logical plan for survival and has drove him to rush closer to an unfortunate demise. The man's endurance fails him and he collapses in the snow, sleeping himself to death. This ends the man's struggle with the elements.
Irony plagues the entirety of this story. There's irony in the survivalist's lack of preparation, irony in man trying to kill his best friend, and irony in his attempts to keep warm, being the very things that end up killing him with the cold. Everything the man does is counterproductive to the goal he is trying to achieve. In this, the man's own story of survival is ironic itself, as he seems doomed to die from the start. This culminates all of London's literary career, a struggle of man versus nature, making To Build a Fire one of his strongest pieces.
You're as cold as ice. You're willing to sacrifice our love. You never take